Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in to another episode of the show. Tuesday, January. Jaguary 23rd.
Oh, yes, the Jaguars.
Is that in celebration of the Jaguars' victory this last week over Tom Brady missing the game with that hand injury?
Nobody knows.
No.
Because we
Call him a shot.
are recording this show before the games take place. But in support of Blake Bortles, I
got a snake, man.
I'm going to say that this show is recorded on Jaguary 23rd.
I like it.
Okay. We're going to do a show. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Today is the truth episode for the quarterback position, and we are going to jump right in.
Well, just we are at FSDA right now. That's why we had to record the show
Fantasy
early.
Sports Trade Association.
And we don't let podcasts slip through the cracks. That's not what we're about. We are professionals over here, so we get the content out. We do it early. We work extra hard the week before.
There you have it.
So sweaty working hard.
Yeah.
This morning, we found out we're finalists for the FSWA Podcast of the Year.
Yes.
We're also finalists. At this point in time, we'll find out if we have won several of the nominations that we're grateful to receive from the FSTA, including Best Video Show and the Best Social Media, which
That's all about you.
So we'll let you know what happens when
Once
we
again,
get back.
I've hit the ground. I lobbied. I pushed hard for handsomest sports analyst for that category to be involved in FSTA, but I was shot down due to
I really appreciate
the fear of me just sweeping the awards for years.
Yeah. You know that I thought you were getting my back on that. Do you think I'm just throwing this, do you think that if that category were to exist, it would just be the three of us battling it out?
I don't know. I'm wearing a John Denver cap right now.
Not looking too good.
Man of the people.
I didn't take a shower today. I'm just here.
It's not a hygiene award.
Let's be honest.
This is the truth episode.
Matt Harmon would be winning that award.
V handsome.
He's the dapperest analyst.
Quite possibly.
What? All right, here's a quick question. What player situation are you most interested in monitoring this offseason for fantasy football purposes? This comes in off of Twitter from David Snyder. Who are you most interested in following this offseason when it comes to, it could be whatever, free agency, draft?
So many. I will say this, based on seeing what is in the show doc, this is the year of the quarterback because we've never had the opportunity to watch free agent quarterbacks. They just don't ever matter because they don't exist. And this year, it was ironic. I put Kirk Cousins down, and then Andy chose Kirk Cousins, and now we've seemingly both changed our answer, even though he's probably going to be that first domino to drop that biggest name. I am actually more fascinated with the trifecta of three free agent quarterbacks from the Minnesota Vikings. I want to see how that plays out. Who do the Vikings bring back? Who goes elsewhere? Does someone go with Shermer if he gets a head coaching job? I'm fascinated, and so I want to see how that plays out, and especially with my love for Case Keenum.
Yeah, I hate to spoil it for you, Jason, but Case Keenum will be back.
I'm sure he's a Viking. After that skull chant, you kidding me?
It's done. It's done.
I want to see what happens with Alex Smith. He can go into another roster and make it both fantasy and NFL relevant immediately. He's a capable quarterback. You talk about if he landed in Cleveland.
Right.
That's what I want to see.
You know, Josh Gordon and Corey Coleman and company. Talk of Terrell Pryor going back there. Duke Johnson out of the backfield. All of a sudden, all you need is a little bit of reliability at the quarterback position for a team to go from best case in point, and it'll lead into your answer, Mike. T.Y. Hilton and the pass-catching weapons in Indianapolis. T.Y. Hilton went from consistent fantasy force to inconsistent frequent pooper because of the quarterback position. Alex Smith has the ability to go to another roster. Maybe it's Arizona. Maybe that means Larry Fitzgerald continues his 100 and 1,000 pace that he's been going on. It just, wherever he lands, I'm curious to see how that impacts the fantasy landscape. It could be still Kansas City, but
yeah, that's as you were talking. I was
just a lot of talk of their willingness to trade him.
Just seems like a foregone conclusion. He won't be there, but he could still be the starting quarterback.
It would be the most Alex Smith moment for them to trade Smith to the Browns. I mean, what does this guy have to do
to get respect?
On San Francisco, he was leading that team to the Super Bowl. To the playoffs at least, gets knocked out with a concussion. Colin Kaepernick comes in, and granted, I didn't hate the choice from Harbaugh to say, well, we're going to keep going with Kaepernick. It's like the guy's turned the team around. Okay, we trade him away to the Chiefs. Andy Reid brings him right in. He helps turn the Chiefs around from just a dumpster fire of many, many seasons, and now they're like, we got Pat Mahomes here. We'll just send you to the Browns, who didn't win a game last year.
Are you pre-complaining? I mean, then
yes,
you do know none of this has happened, Mike, right? You're like, and then they send him to the Browns, and oh man, poor guy.
I don't know if you know.
Nothing's happened yet.
But about 80% of our show is projecting and talking about what may happen. So yes, I am pre-complaining. I'm just putting my foot down for Alex Smith. The man deserves better. The player I want to.
It's going to end up in New England.
Yeah.
Hey, great. Then
because of this weekend's hand thing?
The funniest thing I heard
last weekend, Jason,
or saw on Twitter, people talking about Tom Brady is a meme, said Tom Brady's hand pain can be directly related to he put an additional finger on his hand in anticipation of his 6th ring.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Very funny. Nice. But it's Andrew Luck. Andy mentioned it briefly, the Colts situation. T.Y. Hilton goes from we don't care to wide receiver 1. Marlon Mack or Frank Gore. Marlon Mack especially becomes very interesting if we are confident that Andrew Luck is going to be back to open the season. What are they going to do? Chester Rogers? Are they going to bring back Dante Moncrief? I mean, just huge things happen to the Colts offense if Andrew Luck is there as compared to Jacoby Brissett, who played fine, but he's just not Andrew Luck.
All right, we're going to jump right into the truth about fantasy quarterbacks.
Right in.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
To be fair, you didn't qualify. It was maybe a jump off a step stool or a jump from a plane.
Right.
I mean, it was a
sometimes
lengthy...
we want people to sit and think.
Yeah.
Just how often in your life do you get a moment of quiet?
Slow down out there.
You're
know?
welcome, world.
Take some time to think. I like that, Andy. Thank you.
It's just
the Foot Clan thanks you.
What did you think about, Jason?
A calm moment.
I was
food.
Actually, I did utilize that time. I was tweeting out to Pro Football Doc based on your quick question whether or not there's any history of the injury that Andrew Luck had causing a long-term, end of career type of thing with a player at his age. So yeah, thank you for that time, Andy.
You're welcome, guys. I do what I can. We're going to talk quarterbacks. If you've listened to the last week and a half of episodes, we've talked consistency. We've broken down the truth about the players that finished in the top 10, top 20 at the wide receiver and wide receiver and running back position. Today we're talking quarterbacks. And the way we look at consistency is we break these games down into 3 categories. So we look at their game log, and we say, how many great games have they had? That's a game where at the quarterback position they scored more than 25 points. That is a top 3 finish on average. How many good games did they have where they score more than 17 points? That's a top 12, a QB1 type of week. And then how many bust games below 15 points outside of that top 16 quarterbacks? That's a pretty high threshold for bust there. I didn't realize where we had it.
No, it's good because you can have a quarterback where they feel disappointing, but the point difference between a guy at 12, you're like, oh, I had the number 12 guy. The point difference between that and the QB 16 is so marginal that it's not, in my opinion, is not actually a bust.
Well, and what's really interesting when you look at the data and you've got it all laid out, even though the points are close, there's really a threshold break where when you look at those tiers of points, it really is like, okay, these players who were under 15 points, they're almost always outside of that. They're 17 and lower on the rank that week. And if that's where you've got your quarterback playing, he's definitely hurting you, especially with how much the top quarterbacks put up.
All right, number 1 is Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
Nobody in fantasy football scored more points than Russell Wilson on the season. The number 1 quarterback with just under 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns. And then, look, he runs the ball, 500-plus yards on the ground, consistency rank of number 4.
Now, about that consistency rank, just to interject real quick, we've said this before on the shows. If you haven't listened to the running backs, the wide receivers, go back, listen. They're valuable shows. But these are kind of injury agnostic. They just take into account the games played. If you look at the top 3, you say Russell Wilson's number 4 consistency rating. The top 3 were Deshaun Watson, number 1, Carson Wentz, number 2, and Aaron Rodgers, number 3. So
the key to consistency is to be hurt, is what you're telling me.
Yes, exactly. Be hot fire for a few games, and then go down. Go down, because then everyone will go, what could have been? Extrapolate.
Why
stats.
is Sam Bradford not number 1?
Because he played that second game.
Yeah,
he came
big mistake
against, I think it was the Bears with the bum knee, and he was awful.
So when he played, Russell Wilson, if you combine injury or lack of injury with his performances, he was the most consistent when you combine those factors.
Yeah.
We joked often about how he owned the fourth quarter, and in fact, he threw for 1,303 passing yards in the fourth quarter, which was most in the NFL.
That is just such a ridiculous number.
And he's an interesting case because it seemed like it finally happened for him from a fantasy perspective, but the team was so up and down, and now you have Darrell Bevell fired. You have a new offensive coordinator and Brian Schottenheimer coming in, who led if you remember Brian Schottenheimer, he was key to those monster years from Mark Sanchez. And look, there's not a lot of enthusiasm on the offensive line situation, the weaponry that Wilson has, the running game or lack thereof, but having to carry the load, as you know, I can relate to that.
Oh, on the show?
Oh, having to kind of make up for deficiencies in close proximity to me. And
Brooks, he's talking to you.
Yeah. How do you feel, Brooks?
So I'm the
Thanks.
Andy Holloway. No, Russell Wilson had a great year. What do you think this means for the future? Because I don't think any of us are drafting him as the number 1 quarterback next year.
No, certainly not. Russell Wilson has, he benefited, as we just shared some of those names that got injured, could have finished ahead of him on the season had they played 16. This is reminiscent to me of last year's tight ends.
It's going into my head too.
Travis Kelce was the number 1 tight end, but you lost Jordan Reed, you lost Gronk those seasons, and so I still like Russell Wilson. I thought he was a valuable quarterback to draft. He was one of my favorite guys this preseason to draft for where he was going, but definitely should not be the first quarterback off the board.
He could do the exact same thing next year. None of his numbers were outliers except the weird 33% of his passing yards in the fourth quarter. That's strange. But he didn't have the touchdowns. He's had a year of 34 passing touchdowns before. The touchdown percentage, nothing was crazy.
No, but this exact season could end up number 5 at the quarterback position.
Right. But
that's kind of what I think Jason was saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the nice thing, what I mean was he can do this again next year is, once again, be the 5th drafted quarterback, because everyone's going to go crazy for Rodgers, Brady,
Watson,
Wentz, and Cam Newton. I mean, so Wilson's going to be in the mix of those guys. What's that?
What's
you think Cam? You think people go crazy for Cam?
The number 2 quarterback on the year?
I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly do think that people the rubber band will happen.
I guess I feel Cam's consistency rating, which we'll talk about in a second.
That's perfectly fine.
Ranking.
But when the general public, when they look at fantasy finish, they go, "Oh, well, Cam Newton should be a top 5 quarterback."
That's very true, Mike.
To be fair, Cam Newton has been a top 5 quarterback for the majority of his fantasy career.
Yeah, including a dominating number 1 performance 2 years ago.
So just saying that Wilson, once again, could be, if you're a player who likes to take your quarterback and feel more secure about them earlier, maybe you can get Wilson in like the 6th round or something.
So let's talk about Cam Jelena. Oh, Cam Newton.
Cam Jelena Jolie?
Yeah,
you're going?
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going.
That's a weird thing.
I'm on some
you relaxing?
Yeah. So Cam Newton, consistency rank of number 10 despite the number 2 finish. Look, before the season, I'll toot right here. I told you the dude's going to run the ball.
Yes, you did.
You did.
And he had made the funny comment about, look, do you tell a lion not to roar? Look, Cam Newton, he's not Cam Newton without running the ball. He ran it 139 times for 754 yards. That's the most from the quarterback position since 2014 when Russell Wilson ran for a whole bucket load, 859. But
a bucket? That's a bucket is generally small.
Okay.
I mean,
thanks, Mike.
That's a boatload.
Okay. All right.
Got to upgrade.
Anything else?
I like boats.
All right. He busted 44% of the time. He was good 50% of the time. We didn't give you those numbers on Russell Wilson. He was 69% of the time was good, 25% bust, 31% great games. Cam Newton had 25% great games.
And those numbers for Russell Wilson, they are the only quarterback that was
they
comprise the only quarterback that was above, like significantly above average on all 3 of those metrics. Whereas Cam Newton was above average on his big blow-up games. He was a monster in some weeks, but he is far below average of the top 12 when it comes to those bust weeks. A 44% bust rate is terrible.
Yes.
There's a couple of these top 12 finishing quarterbacks that you need to be careful of. That's why coming into this season, I usually view Cam Newton as a streamer. You can't draft him like a streamer, but you have to play matchups and try to get it right because he does do the disappearing act.
Cam Newton didn't perform for you if he didn't run this year. That's what it comes down to. No quarterback had fewer touchdowns than Cam Newton through the air until you get down to number 11 with Dak Prescott. So it wasn't the passing touchdowns that got it done. It was the fact he would run the ball and raise that baseline. He scored 6 times on the ground. He still threw 16 interceptions. He looked lost at times. He lost Kelvin Benjamin for part of the year. He was learning to throw to McCaffrey and other weapons that he had. He didn't have Greg Olsen for a big part of the year as well, one of his best pass-catching weapons. And I think that Cam is probably in lock for top 5 range next year. And so it's value. Where do you pay? What do you pay in the draft? I think I split the difference on what you two were kind of talking about earlier. You talked about the players that were going to get hype at the wide quarterback position, Mike. You said Deshaun Watson. People saw what he did. They'll project that forward. Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Rodgers, Luck,
Wentz.
Brees will always go too high at this point.
Who will?
Drew Brees, because of the name.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't think he's going in above any of the names Mike just said. So
people got the burns this
I think
year.
there's a chance Newton and Brees end up very similarly ADP, similar ADP, and could be a value. I still think there's a chance there's a value there for Cam Newton because the consistency rank, if you didn't play him in the right weeks, he did burn you. He didn't get the fanfare of his number 1 year a couple of years ago. It'll be interesting to see. You guys have any thoughts on Cam? Do you think he continues? I know that the offseason narrative is going to be running related. Oh, how long can you run? And no quarterbacks run past this age and blah, blah, blah. And I still think he's a different animal.
I think he will continue running next year based on what we saw this year. My problem, the whole issue, the truth of the quarterbacks is that I think Cam Newton next year finishes as a top 5 quarterback and is not a quarterback I want on my team because you can't always guess his bad games. A lot of times the outlook might have been good. It wasn't like he had crazy home road splits or against top defenses, bottom defenses. They weren't enough to be able to predict which games he ends up with rushing touchdowns or he doesn't. And so he's one of those guys kind of like Amari Cooper 2 years ago where he was great, had a great finish at the end of the year, but did he help you win games consistently through the year to get in the playoffs? It just depends on if you started him in the right weeks.
14 of his 22 passing touchdowns, 14 came in 4 games.
Exactly. He's really boom or bust. That's why, even though he's number 2, he's number 10 on consistency.
He basically took that 2015 year. If you throw that out, this year looked a lot like all his other years. 21, yes. 19, 24, 18, 19, 22 touchdowns on the season. And he missed Ted Ginn. That's my opinion.
He missed
a speed guy down there. If you look at his completions, he completed 21 more passes than the year before.
To be fair, Greg Olsen.
But he threw for 200 less yards, and that comes down to Ted Ginn.
It will be interesting. Another year with, practice of throwing to the running back, which wasn't his forte, with McCaffrey. If he gets Greg Olsen back, they get him another weapon in the draft. I think
most rushing yards of his career.
He certainly will finish well next year. It's just, can he be a little bit more consistent?
Tom Brady.
Like Tom Brady. But
Tom Brady comes in number 3. Oh, okay.
Before we talk about Tom Brady.
We'll wait.
Because Tom Brady's getting up there in age, getting that 40. You know what Tom Brady needs is Control GX from Just for Men.
Oh, why are you putting Brady on blast?
Well, look, he feels younger, and Control GX.
This is true.
It's the first gray-reducing shampoo from Just for Men. It makes the idea of taking a little bit of the gray out of your hair super duper easy. I mean, it's shampoo in, rinse out, move on.
I can do that.
I already do that. Just use this shampoo, and it helps men look their best so they can celebrate who they are, what they achieve, and how they feel. Just use it as you would your regular shampoo until you see what you like. Most guys get the results they want in about 2 weeks. Look forward to a smart look. Look, they are relentlessly innovative over at Just for Men, and you can get 25% off Control GX using the code FOOTBALLERS at ControlGX.com. That's code FOOTBALLERS to get 25% off of Control GX at ControlGX.com.
And we know Tom Brady gets his rest, and he probably does
He certainly does.
On a Casper mattress. Let's talk about my mattress.
He sleeps 15 hours a day.
Wow. That's impressive. You need that when you're aged. Look, I have a Casper mattress. My wife and I got one a few years ago. They are a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create an exceptionally comfortable sleep experience one night at a time. There's no reason to go out and spend $1 billion for all the bells and whistles when you get the absolutely best engineered mattress from Casper. And look, I've got mine. My wife and I, we've loved it. You get a 100-night risk-free sleep on it trial. So they make sure that you like it as well. And they have 3 models: the original Casper, the Wave, the Essential. Casper mattresses are perfectly designed. They have a breathable design. And it's delivered right to your door. How simple is that? Very, very simple. You just order. That's it. Comes to your door. Try it out. Look, you spend a third of your life sleeping.
Or
some
half.
of you a little bit more.
Tom Brady spends half.
So start sleeping ahead of the curve with Casper. Get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting Casper.com/footballers and using the code FOOTBALLERS at checkout. That's Casper.com/footballers. Offer code FOOTBALLERS for $50 off your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions apply. All right, can we finally talk about Tom Brady?
I think we already did.
I was listening to some radio, and they were talking about Tom Brady maybe having.
Were you by the fire?
They were talking, and I was driving.
The transistor was on.
Mike is relentless this morning.
He's not letting anything pass.
He's not letting us do a show. Tom Brady, consistency rank of number 7. The people were talking about Tom Brady having the most to prove this week, which the objection is there, right? Like 12 appearances in the AFC title game, and 5 Super Bowls and all these MVPs. But we keep raising the bar for Tom Brady. Now it's, can you win at 40? Can you win as you age? Can you win in light of the Jimmy Garoppolo situation where you let him go, and are you really going to be the same Tom Brady? Where does Brady go in the draft next year? He's the consistency ranked 7. 50% of his games were good. He busted a quarter of the time, and he still had 19% great games, but you didn't have as many of those monster games that you had in years past. So where do you sit with Tom Brady moving forward in light of the truth?
Moving forward, I believe that Tom Brady will still be good next year. We just talked about some of the weapons that Cam Newton lost, And Tom Brady, for everything that he did this year, only busting 25% of the time, which is a very good rate for a quarterback, especially if you're going to invest in a high quarterback. That's one of those, whenever you do that, which we don't recommend here in fantasy football, but if you do, it's really important. You're going to plug and play those guys. So the bust number is almost the more important one to look at because you don't want to lose weeks because of your high spent draft capital. That wouldn't make sense. Well, Tom Brady did that, but he did that after losing Julian Edelman and Malcolm Mitchell and a large chunk of the season losing Chris Hogan. So if you're always going to have injury, but that seems like a lot to his main receiving options. Thankfully, he didn't lose Gronk this year. I'm going to believe he can continue to play at a high level next year. And I think this is all you could have asked for or hoped for this season in Tom Brady. I guess you hope he has more of the monster games and is 35 again, but that's not happening. I just don't see the next year. I'm focused on how consistent he can be versus just his big monster blow up games.
Yeah, and you can see his production where things kind of fell apart for him, at least for fantasy purposes. I mean, specifically speaking to the fantasy playoffs, where you weren't getting what you needed from Tom Brady or what you had hoped for. It kind of coincided with the Achilles injury it wasn't really talked about very much, but you saw him throw an interception in 5 straight games. I mean, Tom Brady doesn't do that. So you have to hope that is what happened towards the end of the year, and he can still perform. I think he will still be overdrafted though.
Didn't Brady only throw like 2 interceptions last year?
Something I'm looking. Check.
Yes,
quick.
That is correct. 2 interceptions last year.
Well, I mean, 2 is an outlier, but yes,
7 the year
very
before.
Low.
I mean, it's always extremely low.
He also wasn't affected by top defenses. Cam Newton, Russell Wilson both performed minus 4.8 fantasy points for Russell Wilson.
Was a lot better against bottom defenses. Yes.
Right. And Brady was actually better against the better defenses. Alex Smith was the 4th-ranked quarterback and the 5th-ranked in terms of consistency at the quarterback position. Over 4,000 yards this year for Alex Smith, 26 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions, and he ran the ball a little bit. 60 carries for 355, kind of what you were getting from Alex Smith in years past. Busted only 27% of the time, good 53% of the time. And look, this was a banner year for Alex Smith. It showed that he could do a little bit more behind center and get the ball downfield. 540 more passing yards than his previous season high.
Yeah, he's never been over 4,000 yards.
So other than talking about him leaving, what if he comes back? Is he still is Alex Smith, the vanilla name, a great value in drafts next year if he comes back with Tyreek Hill, with Travis Kelce, with Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, I think he will be a good value. I don't think Alex Smith will, as soon as draft season rolls around, okay, the narrative will not be great for Alex Smith because, like Andy said, he's a vanilla name. He's never been a fantasy superstar. And everyone in the draft, they want to grab the next best thing. And I don't think people are going to project that forward for Alex Smith. But if he's in the same system, and specifically with guys like Tyreek the Freak Hill, who can take a screen pass and all of a sudden it's an 80-yard touchdown bomb from Alex Smith, I think that Alex Smith would have value next year. I worry if he changes teams because, Andy points this out a lot over the years. You don't like when a player is kind of having that career year, career highs in all these different categories. Usually that means they're going to regress. Now, Alex Smith will, right? I mean,
yes.
You just said it, 540 more passing yards than his previous career high. So you should expect a little bit of regression.
Who would you draft next year if Alex Smith stayed in Kansas City? Would you take him or would you take Matthew Stafford?
So that's a great example. I would probably end up – this is all draft cost. I will take whoever is cheaper later in the draft, which would probably, I still think, be Alex Smith.
Who do you think goes higher next year?
I think I disagree with Jason. I think Alex Smith will go higher in the draft.
All right, more question marks here.
But I'm with you that you got to be careful of the regression for Alex Smith. I think he's a good quarterback, but is Tyreek Hill really the one piece that can put Alex Smith into that range where you go, oh, well, I have a QB1?
Yeah. I think so.
You think so? Okay.
Combined with the rushing. The rushing is what scares me because 2 years ago, Alex Smith stopped running the ball.
Yes.
Last year, he's like, oh, I can do this. Do that, Alex.
Carson Wentz at number 5. So despite the injury, still finished the year as the 5th best fantasy quarterback and the 2nd most consistent. Oh, look, you watched the evolution of Carson Wentz. You watched him grow up into an incredible quarterback this year. His pocket presence, his ability to extend the play. You saw from him what you saw from Russell Wilson, which was the ability to extend the play, find Nelson Aguilar down the field, find the broken play down the field, and his efficiency in the red zone was unparalleled this past year. And so now you know 33 touchdowns, 3,200 yards, only 7 interceptions. Right there, that 33-7 is something that you got to keep your eye on. Going, okay, is he really at the Brady level?
That and the 7.5% touchdown rate.
Yeah, and so
that's super high.
If he hadn't been hurt, I think we'd still all be here saying we love Carson Wentz, but regression seems like it's coming.
For sure.
And then you trade in, draft cost. And look, I like the fact they locked up Alshon Jeffrey. You give him a weapon consistently for the next 4 years, but you do have the injury he's coming back from now. Could limit some of that ability to escape the pocket at least earlier in the year. So the truth about Carson Wentz, he had a great year, but he's probably not going to end up on any of my fantasy teams next year.
Yeah, the truth about his current year is unbelievable. If you don't realize how good he was, his big blow-up monster games, they came at a clip that just flat out won you weeks, and he barely busted at the same time. You have he had 8 starts as a top 5 quarterback, which is the most this year despite playing only 13 games. It's as many as Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, and Jared Goff combined, and he only played 13 games. But everything Andy said about regression, to me, look, if I'm in Dynasty, I love him, right? He's a young superstar and will be. But a lot of what kept his drives alive, what made him special, was his ability to scramble, to run, and extend the drives by picking up, a 15-yard third down
and dousing himself in oil.
And he was that play where he basically got sacked and then squirted out of the pocket was amazing. But coming off of a late season knee injury,
I think the thing people need to understand is we are not talking negatively about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz can come out next year and lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl and still underperform on the expectations he set in fantasy football, simply on the basis that his touchdown percentage was so high. They may run the ball in those drives 10%, 20% more often because a block goes the right direction. Maybe they're protecting Wentz a little bit more. Who knows? He could be a great NFL quarterback and still not live up to your expectations if you're drafting him to be this guy.
Right, exactly. Even if his touchdown percentage drops down to 6,
right,
it'd be
fine.
He could lead the league with that.
Well, he won't lead the league, but it would be a very good percentage.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're still losing a lot of touchdowns off your numbers. So he'll disappoint next year.
Yeah, just be careful with that situation. And look, I'm in a couple of keeper dynasty leagues where I have to make the decision: do I hang on to him versus somebody else? Do I bank on him next year in my dynasty league, or do I have to go find another quarterback to complement? These are tough decisions, and we have the offseason to follow injury reports and figure out where he's at. He obviously has the structure around him to succeed. Good offensive line, good running backs, good coach, stability there, and some wideouts.
Great defense.
And Zach Ertz helps a lot too. You notice having that tight end, that go-to tight end as a stabilizing force for these quarterbacks at the top. Look, Alex Smith, right, has Travis Kelce. Russell Wilson at the top had Jimmy Graham. Tom Brady has Rob Gronkowski. These are all prolific tight ends that seem to directly affect these quarterbacks.
That's Cam Newton has
Greg Olsen.
That's an interesting
little
nugget you have
little
uncovered.
Observation there.
The top 5 quarterbacks all have
top 10 tight ends.
Yes, I will not call Jimmy Graham elite, but he was elite.
He helped in the red zone.
Elite at catching touchdowns.
Aaron Rodgers is over in the corner laughing.
I don't need your tight end.
I don't need you. Kirk Cousins.
I'm Aaron Rodgers.
No, don't they have Martellus Bennett, guys?
Discount double check.
That was the best joke you've ever said.
Kirk Cousins comes in at
Brooks.
number 6. Fantasy's number 6 quarterback with a consistency rank of a middling quarterback. Number 15 in consistency.
Yeah.
Busted 44%. He busted as often as he was good.
He busted the same rate that Cam Newton did, and he didn't have as many great games as Cam. I mean, Kirk Cousins, sorry, Mike, he might have finished the year number 6. He was garbage this year for fantasy owners.
He missed Jordan Reed. Look, we just talked about the time. He really missed Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
Finishing drives, having third down conversions. Jordan Reed was the master of that.
He missed the hype of Terrell Pryor, too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
we
mean,
all missed that.
The way that he performed this year, sure, he finished as number 6, but if you were relying on him, you didn't even make the playoffs because you had stretches where it was like, okay, he had 20 points, 27 points. Okay, so he's great. You're going to start him. Everything lined up great. And at that start, you know, when you were like, oh, he was fantastic, 10 points, then 8 points. So it's like, okay, maybe he's in a lull. I'm not going to start him. Back to 27 and 25, and then he drops down to the teens to 8, finishes the year with a 7-point game. I mean, it was hard to predict him. You couldn't get these games right, and every time it looked like he was getting it together, he collapsed. He caused a lot of
Mike knows that
year.
from firsthand experience.
Certainly.
You rolled him out there over Jameis Winston in one of the fantasy playoff weeks?
I can't.
I don't remember if you did or not. I feel like one week you did. He was tough to predict, like Jason said. We'll figure out where he's at. Is he going to be back in Washington with another year with Jay Gruden, or is he going to be in a new destination? You know, he's another one of those guys. Jason and I both put him down as one to watch this offseason because, look, you bring a great quarterback into another situation and you change everything.
It is worth noting, you know, coming into this season,
New England maybe?
I was down on the Redskins because of all the change. When you lose the inconsistency was not like this.
They lost
2 years ago.
1,000-yard receivers.
Exactly. And their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, their OC.
So when you lose all of that, it's hard to be consistently good even when you can have those big games. So if he does change teams, it's worth realizing he might have some bad games while he's figuring out the new set of receivers, the new playbook, all of that stuff. He's still a good quarterback. I would, as an Arizona native, I'd love him to come to the Cardinals versus having
Where's
nobody.
it go? Where put
Are
it
we calling our shot?
Put it on the books. Where's Kirk Cousins playing quarterback next year?
Woo!
Man.
I'll give you. You can have 2 options. You can give 2 places, 2 locations.
I'll throw Arizona in as one. And
Oof.
what do you have them in mind?
Yeah.
Denver.
Yep. Arizona or Denver.
Yeah, Denver would be.
That's on my books.
Denver would be my number one. I'm going to go Denver and Cleveland. He said he would play there, which if I'm a Browns general manager, any player that says, hey, I would like to play there, and be like, oh, bring him in. He says he wants to be here.
Oh.
All right, where are we going? We're heading.
Matty.
We're heading to Matty Snapback.
You should turn that hat around.
Oh, you know what?
In honor of Matty's snapback, the ball cap has gone backwards for Mr. Holloway. You
I'm
took a cooler.
I'm gonna drink my coffee sidearm.
Oh, I like it. Very nice. If you're not on the YouTube, it's spilled everywhere. Oh man! If you're just listening on the podcast app, we thank you for being there. Subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and also get on over to the video product over on YouTube.
I feel like I did that with my mind. And when you said I'm going to drink sideways, I'm like, that's going to spill.
I think gravity took that one.
Mike did gravity with this. You can control gravity, Mike?
What are you doing this show for? You're an X-Man. But your only power is to drink beverages sideways. That's all you
to
can
make
do.
people spill.
Okay, Matt Stafford. I got the hat on backwards. Look, he had another good year. 29 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. One of the reasons why this Lions head coaching job and why we think Matt Patricia ends up there and they try to turn this thing around, Jim Caldwell was kind of like, to me, he was an anchor that the boat had to drag. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to Caldwell, but that was pretty disrespectful.
Yeah.
But I just mean
But it's pretty accurate.
It's just
No, I said no offense.
the anchor only affects the ship at some later in the journey when you want to go to the next level. He could not carry the. I feel like they reached their camp with Jim Caldwell. Is my point.
That's fair.
And so Matt Patricia is going to come in here most likely, but Matthew Stafford's a franchise quarterback. If you could ask for something under your tree as a new coach, it's a franchise quarterback, and you've got one with Matthew Stafford. There's no doubt about that. Now, he busted 38% of the time. He was good 44% of the time. And I think we're going to hear a lot about, smooth routes this offseason.
Oh!
Because Kenny Galladay's going to be a breakout candidate.
Kenny G on the pipes.
Oh! So smooth.
You think Matthew Stafford's into jazz?
You know what was missing for Matthew Stafford this year? We're getting to the
He's
point.
gonna be.
We're getting to the point of these quarterbacks when I look at them all compared to each other, as we talk about the 7th, 8th, and 9th ranked quarterbacks on the season, which were Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers, and Drew Brees. Here's where you see these guys where, look, they finished as quarterback ones, even top 10, but they were lacking the big blow-up performances. That Matthew Stafford has had that in the past, and this year he only had 2 games. Only 13% of his games were those week-winning type of performances that really made him a valuable fantasy asset. So that means to me, when you lack the boom games, that's what's going to help you fall in the next year's draft. And so the question we have to ask is Stafford capable of the boom games at a higher rate than he did this year? I believe he is. So Stafford could be a value next year because, 38% bust, that's about average of the top 12. It's what you're going to get from most of these guys. And I think his place to grow is the ability to have, more deep bumps, especially as Kenny Galladay grows up a little and maybe
just doesn't
gets healthy.
Yeah, it just doesn't get hurt. Did you guys bring this up? The 7th season in a row?
We did not.
4,200 plus passing yards?
That's
That's like Drew Brees light from Drew Brees in his prime. I mean, it's pretty much what you get there. I love Matthew Stafford because he's going to be a value in the draft. I already know that.
I think that the time of Matthew Stafford, early on in his career, when it was the 5,000 yards, the huge touchdowns amounts, I think that's gone. I think that Matthew Stafford maybe it was just the coaching staff, but they had turned him into a game manager. I don't know if people realize exactly what had happened to Stafford. He can have a game here and there where he throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, but it's not consistent like that anymore. His interceptions have come way down.
His accuracy percentage, 60, 67, 65, 65.
He's a much better NFL quarterback now. He's making much better decisions instead of just turning the hat around and throwing it sideways and saying, I'll make that throw.
Calvin Johnson lets you be a little more frivolous with the ball.
He certainly does. But
I still like him. I still think you get something safe with him. And so if you are going to wait until the 8th round to draft a quarterback, 9th round, 10th round, and he's sitting there on the board, and he can give you consistent weeks, you really have a good team.
Yeah, and while, yes, you might not get the outlier 41 touchdown season, but there's only a handful of quarterbacks that you can pretty much say, look, this guy has a really above, a very realistic chance of throwing over 30 touchdowns. And, he had 29 this year. He's had 29 before, 32 before. I think that's in the realm of possibility.
He's only been over 30 twice.
Sure. Yes, he's been over 30 2 times. Once was 41, and then he's been at 29 2 times. So he could, if you say next year he has 33 touchdowns, that's very realistic.
It's plausible, yes.
All right, let's talk about Phillip Rivers, the 8th ranked fantasy quarterback, the 6th ranked in consistency. He only busted a quarter of the time. That's pretty much the lowest rate you can get at the quarterback position, and he was good 56% of the time.
Sorry, before we jump fully into Phillip Rivers, just wanted to bring up Matt Stafford was 5 points better at home. So those are
definitely worth noting.
Yes. If you're just
There's no way Phillip Rivers doesn't wear his hat forward like me. So I'm going to put that on.
Phillip Rivers strikes me as a visor
With
man.
that many kids, you got to set the example. That's a hat forward.
Yeah.
It's a visor. It's cargo shorts.
Do I look like I'm getting mad at you guys because you made a bad play?
Oh my gosh. I will, Brooks, give me the camera.
Oh, I'm backing up.
Look, Phillip, I like you as a fantasy football player. I think I like you as a guy. I mean, everything I've heard about you in the locker room and you as a teammate and as a citizen in your town. I like Phillip Rivers, okay? Okay? Can we get that out of the way?
Bodies of water, people named after them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time. Phillip, stop blaming every incomplete on everyone else with the worst face I've ever seen in my life. He grimaces every play. It doesn't matter. If he
Do you not realize what that is, though?
20 yards, he's like, oh, your fault.
No. He eats a Tide Pod after every throw.
Oh. Dude, all right.
That's
Brooks,
what it is.
I need the camera again. Brooks, Phillip, stop eating Tide Pods, dude.
They're not candy.
They're not.
That's not grape jelly and then cherry. That's not a gusher.
Thank you, Andy.
Hold on.
We got to the.
Are you sure?
Have you tried it?
It does look pretty good. Do you think some vanilla in there?
They smell good.
So Phillip Rivers getting to fantasy football.
4,500 yards. 4,500 yards, 28 touchdowns.
He's always going to air it out. Obviously, I think one of the biggest differences this year was he had Keenan Allen. He had a wide receiver 1. And why he was consistent, he's always going to throw for the yards. He's good, at throwing touchdowns. It's been the interceptions. Last year, two years ago now, he threw 21 interceptions, led the league. 2 years prior to that, threw 18 and led the league in interceptions. But this previous season, only 11 interceptions. That was the real difference. So do you think next year he's going to be the Phillip Rivers we saw this past year, or is he going to be the every other year high interception?
He's going to be He's going to be this past year's Phillip Rivers, because this team they're building a very strong defense. Rivers had what? How many games in a row with 100-plus passer rating? 9 games in a row. He needs to manage this team, and he got back his best weapon. His most consistent weapon. He tried to do too much the year before because he was throwing to Dontrell Inman and random wide receivers. This past year was impressive. 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I would say, the 21 interceptions last year was an outlier. That's not his career average. He's more in that 11 to 15 range. And so, 10 it's a little bit better than that. He still fumbled the ball 5 times, but he doesn't have to do as much. Still, completed his passes 62% of the time, was on the field, and he's 36. We forget. We talk about Tom Brady, but we forget, Drew Brees is 39. Drew Brees is right at that same. Phillip Rivers still has a couple years here. He's more in that Big Ben category. He's 36.
The question for me for Phillip Rivers is, will they employ the same strategy with Keenan Allen? Because when Keenan Allen took flight and became Superman for fantasy football, you're talking around week 10. From week 10 to the end of the season, Phillip Rivers had 3 interceptions, and that was in one game against Kansas City. That was the complete and total meltdown. And in that time, Phillip Rivers, in those 7 games, Phillip Rivers would have been on pace for over 5,000 yards.
Yeah, he was great. Austin Eckler helped.
So everything for me on Phillip Rivers is, what is the offensive scheme with Keenan Allen?
All right, I want to get through as many of these names as we can. So give me some brief analysis on kind of going into next year. Number 9, Drew Brees, consistency rank of 13. Oof. This year was absolutely different than every year he's ever played since about 2007. This is the first time he hasn't had 30 touchdowns since 2007. He was at 23.
He was terrible.
He dropped down from 37 to 23. Even if you got him as a, quote, value in the draft, he wasn't an actual value. He never had a great game, never had a top 3 week.
I do not understand at all how he finished as the number 9 quarterback. I literally had to go back through and look at our data source to add him up, because when you bust 44% of the time, that's what we were complaining about with Kirk Cousins. That's what we were complaining about with Cam Newton. And you had exactly 0 big games. How did you finish as a top 10 quarterback? He didn't help you at all this year. There was never a game he won. There were plenty of games he lost for you. Drew Brees is, excellent.
Didn't have Brandon Cooks.
Fantastic quarterback. But with their running game going, with him at the age he's at, they have shifted to being a good defense, a good running game, and a perfect quarterback to do everything that is needed and nothing more. For fantasy, I don't want to touch Drew Brees ever again.
Ooh,
that's where I'm at.
No, that's fair.
It's the defensive switch. That was huge. Super Camario, also huge, majorly detrimental to the fantasy production of Drew Brees. This was the first year.
Better defense?
Yeah.
Much better defense.
This was the first year since 2008 that he has thrown fewer than 32 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it went down to 23.
I think I said that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It was so good it needed to be said twice.
I was adding the things up over here and wasn't listening.
That's okay. Big Ben, number 10, consistency rank of number 8. By the way, the template for Drew Brees next year I think is going to be the same. This team was one Hail Mary away from being in the title game. They'll follow the same pattern. Big Ben, he's coming back. He says he wants to play 3 more years. He threw 28 touchdowns. He won't have Todd Haley anymore. He busted 33% of the time. He was good 47% of the time. And he was great 20% of the time. He did not have the home road split this year that we've seen in years past from a fantasy perspective. He was actually down 0.6 points at home this year. He did average 283 passing yards per game, second best of fantasy quarterbacks. Big Ben always is a relevant fantasy player as long as he has Antonio Brown. Now you've got Juju Smith-Schuster and Lev Bell out of the backfield for 80-plus receptions. Big Ben, he belongs here.
Yeah,
he belongs right 8 to 10 range.
He does. He got off to a really bad start this season,
and
it's the tale of 2 seasons. First half of the year, they had that Week 9 bye, so perfect before the bye, after the bye. First half of the year, he averaged 12 points a game. Everyone was disappointed they drafted him. Second half of the year, 22 points a game on average, extremely consistent, and you were very happy you had Big Ben. I think coming back next year, he should be fine. I mean, they got their act together. And like Andy said, he's got the weapons. So I will – it's hard to draft Big Ben because he's got the combo of the name. He always gets a little bit overvalued, and I want him to slip, but I would be fine with Big Ben next year.
All right, what's the truth about Dak Prescott, number 11 this season, consistency rank of 18, just 22 touchdowns. This came from the 25 Stats article. With 304.66 fantasy points in 6-point per TD leagues, Dak Prescott barely finished as a QB1 for the season. Lowest top 12 total since Mark Sanchez finished as the QB10 in 2011. He busted half the time.
50% of his games were not okay. They were bust.
And you knew win a little bit because he was negative 6 points against top defenses.
Yeah, he was.
You sound
bad.
like a man defeated.
Yeah, I mean he came out. He was so hot
for half of the year. He was great for fantasy purposes.
So what is he though moving forward?
I have no idea.
This is the truth. This is where you find out the truth.
And the truth is we don't know.
I don't know.
The Ezekiel Elliott variable, him being gone for 6 games.
Tyron Smith missing games.
Des Bryant not being himself. Accuracy issues. You know, obviously 13 interceptions is a big part of it.
Yeah. I think the accuracy, the decisions he was making later on in the season, that's where it was weird. It just completely fell off the cliff.
Now
confidence.
Here's the one thing I would say. And, you know, Ezekiel Elliott does make a huge difference on that team and on Dak. He had 10 games with him, and he had 6 games without him. On average, his 10 games with Zeke, he averaged 22.8 fantasy points a game, which is fantastic. Without him, 15 points a game, which would be almost averaging a bust. So
Brooks, how do you feel? You're the resident Dallas truther. Give us the truth about Dak Prescott. Tell us his exact
stat line for next year.
Stat line and finish for next year.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Instead, can I just say I still believe in Dak?
Okay.
All right.
Is
that the sentiment among Dallas fans?
Right here. That's
of
mine.
course
You don't have a choice.
You have to.
You don't have a choice.
Brooks is he's the measuring
That's
stick.
Mr. Simpson over there. Homer.
Oh, Jason. Oh,
Sorry, Brooks.
that was a great joke.
Thank you. I'll be here all day. Tip your waitress.
If you heard the trumpet,
That's a terrible joke. Why are you going with the tip your waitress?
I don't know. My dad.
You take everything away.
if you heard the horn, you know Jared Goff is coming.
Oh, the king.
Consistency rank of 11, fantasy finish of 12.
Your Majesty.
3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, and a minuscule 7 interceptions, put in a position to succeed under Sean McVay, and succeed he did. Now, what he didn't do was he couldn't take down, and we've seen this with young quarterbacks. He could not take – we saw this with Derek Carr, too. He can't take down a good defense.
No, I was going to say he is –
9 points fewer against top 16 defenses.
And it makes sense because if you watched Jared Goff's games, a lot of his touchdowns came on the wide receivers making the play happen. And you know when wide receivers are able to make those plays happen and break free from the defense?
When they play the Giants?
When they play poor defenses who aren't as good at tackling, don't have as good a scheme and protection in the back end. So Jared Goff, to me, is a perfect streamer. Here's the reality next year. Because his team's going to be intact. Everything's
still going to be good. He'll be good.
He'll be good. I'm going to look at the schedule when it comes out next year.
I was just going to say it.
And look at those first 3 games. And I'll tell you whether he's undraftable or a must draft in those late rounds.
I think he plays the Giants all 3 weeks.
Draft him.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. Because, yeah, no, you're right. The truth about Jared Goff is that he's a streamer.
Yeah.
And you'll probably only have to pay streaming value for him.
Is there any quarterback finishing lower than this that next year you think is not just a streamer?
Yeah, your candidate for 8. Well, Matt Ryan was at 15 with a consistency rank of 27. I think he regressed past the mean. So I think Matt Ryan is a top 12, top 10 candidate next year.
Sure. Andy Dalton had a really bad
I'm probably not going to
project
him, though, to improve very much. Because same coaching staff is back.
Yeah.
What about Marcus Mariota? He was 18th, a consistency rank of 28. Derek Carr was 19th with a consistency rank of 29.
Mariota is interesting.
Yeah, Mariota, definitely want to see exactly what happens with their head coach, with their offensive coordinator. Definitely interested because he has the weapons. He's got, Decker and Corey Davis and Rashard Matthews. But Jameis Winston is the guy.
Yeah,
to
that's
me,
what I was going to ask you.
He would be the number 1.
He finished 22nd at the quarterback position, but he was 14th in consistency. He busted as much as he had good games, but he was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he
was
only
much
had 13
better.
games.
In the second half, once returning from the shoulder injury, he played tremendously better. He was still turning the ball over with his fumbles. He has to get that under control. But Jameis is better than the fantasy points he put up this season.
Jimmy G or Mitch Trubisky. Are you buying into any sleeper hype on either of those guys?
Garoppolo,
Jimmy G,
yes.
sure.
Yes.
I think there's going to be a ton of people talking about Mitch Trubisky this offseason due to the new head coach, the new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
They also, I believe they just brought in the recently fired offensive coordinator of the Raiders, who got a lot of credit for grooming Derek Carr in the previous 2 years. I think they brought him in to help with Trubisky. It'll be interesting. I'm not projecting Mitch Trubisky to have a breakout year. He could have a Goff year.
They're going to have to get some wide receivers there.
Yeah.
Their lack of weapons.
Those guys are the ones that catch the ball.
They are. And
right?
But the lack of respect in this room for the man weeks 12 through 16, the overall quarterback won. I am embarrassed right now, fellas.
I got a snake, man.
We leave the best for last,
Blake
Mike.
Bortles. The dude was a quarterback 2 years in a row.
And he took down the Patriots in the playoffs.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Maybe
he did.
He might have. Who really knows at this point?
No one.
But he
still need to watch those games.
He talked about weapons. If they bring back Allen Robinson, which I think that they will, Allen Robinson, Keelan Cole, Marquise Lee, Fournette holding it down in the back. I mean,
yeah, but he's going to be in the game manager category. When you have a defense like that, certainly.
Yeah,
when you have a defense like that, there's 0% chance Blake Bortles is giving the keys to some offensive juggernaut.
But what we have seen is that in those right matchups, if needed, he can get the job done. Always has been able to. He came in. I mean, if you look back at his career, every year he's usually finishing as like a top 10 fantasy option, and nobody wants to touch him.
Yep.
I just saw a team named Bordeaux Combat.
Oh, so good.
Very nice.
Finish him.
I'm going to read real quick. I'm just going to give you the rank and consistency rank of the next few guys. Bortles was 13, consistency of 19. Case Keenum was 14 with a consistency of 16. Matt Ryan was the 15th ranked quarterback with a consistency rank of 27. Tyrod Taylor was 16 with a 23 consistency rank. Andy Dalton, 17th with a consistency rank of 26. Marcus Mariota was 18 with a 28 consistency rank. Derek Carr was 19th with a 29th ranked consistency. And finishing up the top 20, Jacoby Brissett with a consistency rank of 35.
Oh.
So
amazing.
That's the truth about fantasy quarterbacks. We will be back with you on Thursday, and I bet you on Thursday we know what happened last week.
More than likely. More than likely. Before we close out, I want to remind you, support for today's show comes from Control GX, the first shampoo that gradually reduces gray just for men. Just use Control GX as you would your regular shampoo until you like what you see. Subtle, natural-looking results. Shampoo in, rinse out, move on. Most guys get the results they want in about 2 weeks. Look forward to a smart look with Control GX. You can get 25% off Control GX if you go to use the code footballers at controlgx.com. That's controlgx.com. The code is footballers, 25% off.
All right, that is it for the show. Thanks for supporting the podcast. And join us at jointhefoot.com if you want an extra episode every week. And check out draft.com/ballers if you want to play some
best ball
with us this offseason.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.